Hey, friends. Hey, we've made it through another week, although there were doubts at times. Anyways, hey, welcome to Thru Port Collective. I'm Cryss, and of course, my co hosts, Marshall and Tim. And we are joined by one of our buddies, Andy Brooks, all the way from
Hi everyone.
Sheffield. Yeah, there you go.
If I fall asleep, just prod me.
So we gotta let people know that it's just after 2 a.m. where Andy is. So we're glad. We feel very privileged to have him on. Him staying up, or did you even sleep, or did you sleep and then wake up?
I went to bed at 9 o'clock, which meant I was thinking, oh, I'll watch Paul Artola's show, which he had on tonight at 10. But I thought, no, I've got to go to bed. So I'm sorry, Paul, I missed that. So yeah, I grabbed a couple of hours, so it's not too bad, and then I'll grab a couple of hours when we're done.
Oh, that's good. Like when I was about 20, I had dropped out of school for a while, and I worked for a supermarket, and I have to get up at 2 a.m. to bicycle across town because I had sold my car. Bicycle across town at 30 degrees and show up for a late shift, and I don't really miss that at all. So I can sympathize with you. So, well, hey Tim, what's been going on, man?
What's going on is like the show, and then I've got this live show coming up with my band, and that's tomorrow night. So I've been over preparing probably. I probably should just go to sleep on it now and just, show up and play with some swagger. But like, I've been really working hard on that, and we rehearse again tomorrow, and that's kind of been my focus. I mean, for the last month, really, or well, whatever, 3 weeks. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on in my world. I'd love to say there were more interesting things other than the one thing, but that's kind of been the focus. It's just taken that to pull it together. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, you've had a lot on your plate lately. I mean, actually this entire last year. So hopefully there'll be a little bit of rest coming up for you.
Yeah. I mean, but like I threw towards the end of the year, all of that I threw that at myself. And the first half of the year was really not something I asked for, but the second half was like, oh, fine, I get to do it now. Let me overdo it. I'm good at that. Yeah, let me do too much now. So, no, it's been great though. It's just a lot of focus. I'm happy.
How you been doing, Marshall?
Been good. I got that K2500X in, which is it's a really interesting synth. It had got one of the ends smashed in shipping, but it's fully functional otherwise. So some cosmetics that can be repaired, so no biggie there. And then that game that I did some trailer music for, they asked me to kind of work on some other stuff for like some menu music and some other stuff like that. So I've actually been working on that this week, which
that's cool.
Really cool, because I haven't really done a lot of. It's more rhythmic textures and stuff. It's not like melodies per se. So it's a little almost kind of ambient-ish, but I don't know how to describe it. It's a unique kind of style for me that is fun. I think it's a lot of fun, actually. So I'm having a good time working on that stuff.
Nice. Yeah, that's a interesting interesting project that you've got going on there.
Yeah, we'll see how it all goes. I'm anxious to see if they want me to do anything else to help out, and I hope it comes along. I mean, it's an independent group, so it's just a handful of people, so it may take a while for the whole thing to come out, but hopefully it comes out and it's a good project for everyone.
Mm. Awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
We should probably do an introduction. I think probably almost everybody, if not everybody, knows who you are already because, because
I keep smearing my face all over the internet is what.
So you're probably best known for being on Ramsey's show.
Yeah, that's where it all started.
Mm. How long have you been doing that?
It might be coming up to 3 years now because April 20, yeah, April 20, I think was the first one, because it was definitely during the first lockdown, and we're all sitting around twiddling our thumbs, going. Ramsey just said there's going to be a slot next week if anybody can make it on, and I thought, well, yeah, why not? and I've been on it ever since. And then again, I think, yeah, I was on Pro Synth Network once, and then Jamie Morden asked me to be on his, and then just other little bits and bobs that have popped up, and yeah, so that's how that started. Because I thought, well, I know a lot about this stuff. Well, I thought I did, and I realised actually very quickly I don't know anything like as much as an awful lot of other people. but I still keep sitting here talking as though I know what I'm talking about, which is is that intruder syndrome? Maybe it is. And then you sort of get into things. You go in certain directions, and then I realised that I was spending an awful lot of time sitting around talking, and not an awful lot of time actually doing, and that's been the big sort of change in the last 12 months. Actually getting into gear and doing what this stuff is supposed to be used for, rather than just going bleep. So.
Well, which is great.
Colored lights too.
Oh, we like the coloured lights, yeah.
That's one thing we try to do on the show, is talk about more application than we do just sort of, like whatever statistics or technicals. We try to actually talk about application more. So yeah, that could be the problem, can it, Andy? Like
what it actually does for the music you're trying to make is really important. Is it a help or a hindrance? I mean, I've found that again. That's one thing with some of the instruments that I've acquired in the last sort of 4 years or so. Some have been a huge help instantly. Some I've got on with straight away. Other things I have just not gelled with at all. And every time I try to use them, I just feel like I'm treading through treacle and not getting anywhere. And that's been frustrating. And other things have actually revealed themselves much better over time. So, the truth is, it's about, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're using a groove box or a bloody great big modular system or manuscript paper or whatever. No, it's about what the end result is, and there hadn't been enough end result.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of like what Tim was saying, like there's a lot of talk about the what. Like people spend just days and days like, what do you use? What do you use? And we're all very interested in that. I mean,
yeah, we are.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with it, is there? It's quite funny in itself.
No, it's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, there's none of us that are not interested in like, oh, what did so and so use on that track, or what are you using on that? How do you? But not as much on like how do you set up a successful system. Something my wife shared with me this week. She was listening to something, I don't remember what it was. I wish I could give credit, but what they were saying is instead of like, so a lot of the time we're thinking like, hey, I want to make a track, or I want to make an album, I want to do a live performance, and we're setting these goals to accomplish such and such a thing. And, all the way on up, there's people that we talk to, they're like, oh yeah, I want to become, a pop star or rock star or whatever, the full gamut of goals. And so what this person was saying is like, instead of focusing so much on goals, like we ought to be focusing on building systems that produce the type of things that lead us towards those goals. So instead of just shooting all the way down and looking down the road and going, oh, I got to be over there, but like in the present, building systems out so that we are continuing to do the things that lead us down that road towards that goal. And I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, and it's kind of got me thinking, particularly since last week we were talking about this also, about how do we do live synth setups? Not just like, oh, hey, what do you use for a clock or what do you use for a filter, but like, how do you have this thing set up? And so if anybody's listening that didn't catch that, I would recommend also checking that episode out too, because Tim and Marshall went through their live synth rigs and we kind of talked about how this works. And so we've been really looking forward to hearing how you do it, Andy. And you've been doing this for a long time too. And
Yeah.
actually, was it last year? I'm trying to remember. Well, I guess it would be in 2021, I think, or what? No, or was it 2022 that you released your? Was it 1994 to 1997 tracks?
Again, that was a sort of result of lockdown, really. In that I've got thousands and thousands of cassettes, and I've got all these cassettes with all proper TDK and Maxell cassettes and things with all these recordings on, and I just thought these are going to disappear one day. So I thought I'll digitize them. So I recorded. Got my old TIAC cassette deck and put it in here, and just spent quite a long time just recording them into Audacity and cleaning them up a little bit, topping and tailing, and then saving them. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do with it? I mean, it's not an example of high quality production, but there are some interesting tracks in there which I'm still quite fond of, and it doesn't really matter if the bass drum's a bit flabby or the top end's disappeared off the tape over time, or you got no idea really what compression did. They really were the early things, and I enjoyed the process of that. But yeah, way back in the 90s, I mean, really from about 1990, I think 94, 95, I'd got a system, if you want to talk about systems, set up with an Atari ST, a couple of old mono synths, and a W30 sampler, Roland W30 sampler, and a drum machine, all running off Cubase on the Atari ST. And I was, a pretty basic setup. And I enjoyed the studio bit. And I thought, I remember seeing this chap in the centre of Sheffield with an electric guitar and a little amp, and it was being powered off a car battery. And he was playing away and singing, and I just thought, why does it always have to be guitars and things like that with buskers? Could you not busk with electronic instruments? What could I do? How could I do it? Yeah. So I spoke to, oddly enough, I spoke to one of the theatres here in Sheffield, and they said, yeah, we can do it, because the Lyceum Theatre here has got a nice sort of metal awning over the entrance. And so we sorted this out, and I did a live busk, if you like, underneath the awnings of the Lyceum Theatre in Sheffield with my couple of mono synths, W30 sampler, and Atari ST. And that was the first one, and I'd really got the bug for playing live. I thought playing live, again, it was sort of dance music, DJs, and all that sort of thing, and I was very influenced by the likes of 808 State and Orbital and so on. And I loved both 808 State and Orbital because they weren't just DJs; they went out and they played live. You could go and see them playing, and that's what I then did. And there were one or two people who saw me that day who took notice and said, We'd like to be involved in what we're doing, and I got then involved in that early sort of techno rave free party scene here in Sheffield and environs, and did that for quite a long time. Then got involved in a band called Chillage People, which was the original. Yeah, exactly.
Great name.
Thank you. I'll take credit for that one. Actually, the original idea was there was this the sound guy from the Arches nightclub here in Sheffield, guy called Flo, this proper throwback hippie, Really, you think if you found him on the streets of San Francisco, he wouldn't have looked out of place. In 1967 in San Francisco, would have been spot on. Well, that was Flo, and he was just the most adorable chap. He was really brilliant. But he got this idea. Yeah, what we need is in the chill out room. We need people to just turn up and just play, and we can have set up the instruments and play and just jam for hours and play. We can do it. We can do it. I'll introduce you to Rupert. So he introduced me to this fellow called Rupert Till, who he'd also mentioned this idea to, and we just got talking. Rupert and I were saying, well, actually, yes, we can do this. We can do this. Let's just set up and play. But it's got to have parameters, limits. It can't just be 25 people turning up. It'll just be chaos. So we talked it through, and then he said, "Can I bring Grace on board?" Who is now Grace? It was Tom Howard at the time, but now Grace Griffin. Can I bring Grace on board? I said, yeah. Grace is a live sound engineer. She's currently on tour with Motorhead. I go, oh bloody hell, really? So,
cool.
Fine. Well, honestly, I mean, again, when Grace was on Dom's show telling the stories, it's amazing, and that's only the tip of the iceberg with the stories that Grace has got about her life on tour. So that started. We realised that out of the improvisations that we did, that we decided to do an album. So that was me in the early days, doing that sort of stuff, and playing live. Loving playing live. Oh, and the amount of gear that we used to take out. I mean, honestly, Marshall, last week when you were talking about what you were doing and what you're planning, and you got all these different things, and I'm going,
Right.
oh no, keep it simple, man, keep it simple. That way disaster lies. No. And then I'm thinking, you're on about Andy. You used to take masses of gear out. it's just such an effort. It's such an effort. So. Well, if I don't know. Actually, Marshall, it was interesting. Are you planning to take like a big rig of stuff elsewhere, or is it just to do live performances from your home? Or?
Well, so initially, like I'll be doing some stuff from here, and then I would like to go and play out here locally, at least in town, nearby. Yeah. I don't plan on doing like a big tour or anything like that. I think you need a good.
No, that's like what I was doing way back then.
Yeah.
And that's what you did back in the day too, right? Because I mean, there weren't little tiny boxes. If you wanted to have a B3 sound, you were moving a B3 in a a Leslie cabinet.
Exactly. Well, it was a lot of boxes, keyboards in hard cases, and mixing. Well, I fucked up. There's a mixing desk as well as an old Mackie CR1604 mixer. Effects units in a rack. It wasn't just the synths. It's all the other things.
No, totally. And that's part of what's made me fearless about it, about taking out more gear. It doesn't bother me. And also, I'm coming from a drumming standpoint, which means that I'm actually carrying about 5 different instruments with me anyway. At least it's typically about 17 pieces, which was just for like a smaller drum kit. So I got used to doing that. So when I first started thinking about doing some solo synth gigs, I thought, well, I mean, that's nothing. That's child's play. I can take out 3 keyboards or 5 keyboards, no problem. But it's still the same bit. I've mentioned that before. It's just like I had an opportunity to change my cartage situation and not have to run a bunch of things around. And I absolutely denied that and said, no, I'll keep doing it. I'll keep taking out a lot of stuff when I started taking out keyboards.
Quite.
It's not too bad when they don't weigh a crap ton, Like, I wouldn't take the Quantum that I have in the current setup is probably the heaviest synth that's in there. And that's, 45 pounds probably? It's not too bad.
Yeah. But if you were to take your big rig out, Marshall, that you're working towards, right? Like, I mean, that would be pretty considerable.
Yeah, but most of the stuff in there is, it's not. I guess I'll let you know
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, it's not that there's one thing that's a beast. It's just that you have a lot of things, a lot of moving, parts, and that's where it gets to be like, yikes.
I was
the
trying to
plugging
get
in and
stuff down
unplugging.
to,
Yes.
the minimum amount of moving parts, like, so things won't go wrong, like, things are set up in my pedal board, so I only have 3 things to plug into that, that kind of stuff where it's not too difficult as far as setup goes. I don't mind the weight so much. The thing that I think about more these days, that like I have got nice gear, and when I go out, can I reliably keep an eye on all of the stuff? And do I have people to help me if I need help moving stuff, or to keep an eye on things? That's become more of a concern these days to me. I mean,
well, so about that, Andy, so when you're transporting your gear and your particular setup, can you speak to why your setup exists in the sort of size that it does, the footprint that it has, and how you transport things? Could you tell us about that?
I mean, basically, my modular system started with bearing and go cases because in terms of the amount of space for the money, it was the best value. And when I started doing the electronic music open mic nights in Sheffield and Derby and round and about, I realised very quickly that case isn't really well suited for it. Okay, you can put it in a box, you can carry the box, but the changeover times and that sort of thing, and just general portability wasn't so good, which is why I then went to this case and had a bit of a rethink. So I'll tell you what, shall I drag that over here and have a run through?
Yeah.
Right, give us a sec.
Yeah, let's do that. This is the point.
Yeah.
Show it. Oh, I'm getting excited already.
Right, so I moved from the Behringer Go case to this sort of custom case. It's a 204, 104 times 2 size case, with a lid, and you can close it all patched up, and then all I have to do is put the power supply, switch it on, take the audio out, give it to the sound guy, and it works. So I mean and I use a BeatStep Pro and a KeyStep 37 to control the things in here, send sequences out, even to clock the sequencer that's in here, and I did that to keep it as simple as possible. And I mean, essentially, what's in this box? It dawned on me not long ago that what I've created in here is a bit like my live setup way back in the 1990s, early 2000s, insofar as I've got a 2-oscillator synth, a single oscillator synth, a digital synth, a sampler, some drums, a mixer, and some effects.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. I've got a Pro 1, an SH101, a sampler, and that's what I've done. And I didn't particularly do that deliberately. It's just the way it sort of turned out. So I can sort of give you a bit of a walkthrough if you like. In this corner here, that's basically like a 2-oscillator synthesizer in itself. There's the Behringer 110 module supplemented with a Hysteria VCO. That's feeding into that, and then going through the rest of the sort of filter amplifier chain with 2 envelopes and an LFO. So that's basically like a 2-oscillator synthesizer. I've got here this module here, not the big one with the screen, but this one here is a Depfer A111 the bloody stupid name.
What does it do?
It's a single oscillator miniature synth voice. It's modular cheating. It's just a little synth in a box. It's a single oscillator. It's great, actually. It's a proper fab little module. Alex Minor Melodies did a great video on that one. It really is great. It's got a nice sub oscillator. So it's like 2 oscillator synth, like my Pro 1. Single oscillator synth, like my SH101. QD, that's 4 drum voices, 4 drums, each got a separate trigger. And then underneath I've got a Platts, that's like a digital synth voice. And then crazy drums, I've got a Basimilus Iteritus Alta going through a Wasp filter under some modulation here, so that's for additional wacky percussion effects. A 182 sequencer, which is just an 8 or 16 step sequencer, which I send triggers from the BeatStep Pro for those sort of. So it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can send it rhythms and it'll go through the steps rhythmically, and I set the pitches, which are then quantized. And then in the bottom right corner, there's a sort of 4 mono, 4 stereo channel mixer with 2 effects units: the Happy Nerding FX8 XL and the Z5000. So it's basically 2 oscillator synth, single oscillator synth, drums, mixing. And then this is my most recent purchase, the Bitbox Micro from 1010 Systems. This is brilliant, absolutely fantastic module. You can stick great long samples in it if you want to, or short little bits. You can play it back from the screen, tapping the pads. You can play it via MIDI. You can play it via control voltage. It's just ace, and I managed to pick this up fairly cheaply second hand as well. So this has been a bit of a game changer in the rig, and it all fits into a case this size. So it means that I can jam quite easily with it too. So can I go and put it back over there? It's heavy on my knee now.
Well, that's you can leave it patched in the box, like an easy transport.
Yeah, like aside from he's headphoneless, but
yeah.
aside from whatever your controller is, that's kind of the way mine is in the back too. Is
I missed those comments. So.
Oh no, you're good. We were just talking about that. It's cool that you can leave it patched and then put the case on. I have the Tip Top Mantis case.
Yeah.
and for the most part, I can leave it patched, but you still obviously have to unpatch whatever you're using to control.
Yes, you do.
So the I'm using the KeyStep Pro, but right, yeah. And so those are the last little bits of things that kind of have to go. But that's not bad.
I made up my own sort of cable loom, which usually stays patched into the modular, and then it comes out, and then all the sockets on the end are all labelled up and actually colour coded. So
gotta have it.
Yeah, well, on the BeatStep Pro, you've got your green channel. Guess what colour cables that has? The yellow channel. Guess what colour cables that has? Right. Okay. The drum channel, which is purple, is a bit different because I've not got purple cables long enough. I use long red tendril cables for that, and obviously they go into the sockets on the back. So I've got them labelled up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the CV, so that I can just go clock, and plug them in really quickly, switch it on, and I know that they're going to the right places. So, this thing's. Yeah. I bought this ages and ages ago to be a sequencer to control my Korg Volkers, because I didn't get on with the sequencers on the Volkers particularly well. I found them a bit didn't work for me. But this didn't work for me either. I never got what I wanted out of it. So I sort of put it to one side and forgot about it. And then as soon as I got the modular stuff, I thought, the BeatStep Pro might work with that. And it works a dream with the modular stuff, without a doubt.
Yeah.
It really does. It comes into its own in a way. It works far better like that than it does over MIDI. So this I think that's what I said earlier. There are some bits which sort of have revealed themselves much later, and this is definitely one of them. I was very, very taken by the KeyStep Pro, and I really thought I would I'll get one of those, that'll be great. And then I thought, well, actually I've still got this and it still works, and if I get the KeyStep 37, that'll give me a polyphonic sequencing. I'll be spending money I don't need to spend. So
now I hate to tell you this, but Wagyu has revealed the secret to your rig, and
as he go on
that up there. So he makes a track at home, then just plays 50-minute sample from his 1010. Got it.
Nice.
Do you know, honestly, Wagyu,
Now it.
you couldn't be more wrong. I honestly, when I was way back to the 90s, you know, let's turn the timer over again. Often I'd be doing live sets alongside other performers, and I have seen people turning up, putting gear on stage. I've even seen people plugging certain things in, and then I know for a fact that they've done their entire set by pressing play on a DAT machine. I've seen it when they've stood and done this, you know, and everything was coming back, and I was just going, chuffing scam. It's not right. I to be honest, I wouldn't want to do it. I understand the idea. You go press one thing and it plays a 15-minute sample. No, I'd be bored. I really love that seat of your pants feeling of playing with the modular, of never knowing quite what's going to happen next. I do like that. No, yes, I understand why some people would do it for safety's sake or not wanting to be embarrassed, but nah, I wouldn't do it. I would never do it.
I think that's the modern day equivalent of Milli Vanilli.
A little bit, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's just like, and if I remember reading some, I think we've discussed this maybe on the channel before, but like I remember learning when Deadmau5 had a certain amount of things that he admitted to that were just playing back through the laptop, and then he was just making certain adjustments to certain things. But you know, you're playing that big a show with that many people with that kind of money involved. I mean, you know, unfortunately, then I think you sort of kind of go, well, maybe I should go ahead and make sure things work, you know, instead of it being different every time. And they kind of want to hear the hits from him and all of that. So, like, that's a whole different beast than sort of the boutique way, Andy, that you go about it. And then a lot of the people that I really admire go about it. You know, you're very seat of the pants, man, and that's what makes it exciting to me. Is I know that I'm on the edge of my seat just as you are, just listening, just kind of going, "Oh, this is so cool! Like, what's going to happen?" That's what I actually like about it. No, I'm dead serious. Yeah.
Well, that is right. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of been lost a lot in music being made these days, or the stuff that makes it to the radio. It's so ultra perfected that you know, like I said, everything is gridded, everything is like sonic perfectly, all of that, and there's no risk involved in it. And you know, I heard a quote, I don't remember who said it now, but they said, you know, one of the reasons I've liked some of the classic musicians, or like, you know, say guitar players like Eddie Van Halen, they're guys that do, you know, a crazy amount of stuff and that are technically far beyond what Eddie could do before he passed. But the thing is, like, you know, there was risk involved and there was groove, and you know, somebody once mentioned that it sounded like his solo sounded like falling down the stairs and landing on your feet. And I thought that was such a brilliant, like, analogy for it, and that, like, there's some risk. Like, you don't know if they're going to pull it off or not, or how it's going to go. And certainly, you know, in the modular world, there's if you're really doing it live, there's that element of like, oh boy, there's so many things that can go wrong as you're going through this, and having the ability to kind of move on your feet and do something, you know, to recover from a mistake even is kind of a fun thing to say. And, you know, obviously I've listened to a lot of guitar players my whole life, and, you know, I think Jimmy Page was once quoted as saying something like, you know, if you hit the wrong note, you just play it 3 more times, and people thought will make you think it's on purpose. And then certainly there's that kind of thing where there's a skill involved in live performance that you don't necessarily have in recorded music, because in recorded music it's a lot safer and you can go back, you can retrack it and get it right. But with a live performance, what you put out there is just out there, and it's loud and it's bold and it's there. And if you hit something that's off or you turn the wrong knob, it's just there for you to deal with.
and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's there and absorb it now, and then it's just gone. And then, well, let's go hear them again. Or, that's what makes it really exciting, I think, is like it's a one-time shot and a unique performance and a unique musical experience for that group of people at that time, and that's it. And that's also, I really admire that a lot. I mean, coming from kind of a jazz background and having a little bit of an orchestral background, those two things couldn't be further apart. One is super, super rehearsed, and the other is, obviously quite improvisational based. But like, I love the improvisation is just like one of the coolest things ever, because it's going to be different every time, hopefully. You're still pulling from a bag of tricks, right? But like, right? It's not literally like worlds apart, but it's still going to be different every time, and that's what's fun of it. And yeah, definitely, Andy, what I've heard of what you and Grace do, it's the same kind of thing. You have a sort of a framework. I'd love to ask you about what starting points are and how you structure, how you structure your tunes or so. Well, I know. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Tell me.
Well, what I've been doing with Grace, what we've been doing is really for the Hardware Jams group on Facebook, and that's how it started. Really, we got together again. We did a sort of jam, which was great. We enjoyed doing that, and let's do the one for Hardware Jams. That was Inky the Cat basically bullying me into getting me arse in gear and getting and Grace bullying me as well. So we got it going. But the Hardware Jams is they publish a theme for the week, and that you do your jam to a theme, an idea, a concept, a sample pack, a phrase, anything, and what that does is it gives you a starting point. It gives you something to think about and a starting point. And there've been all sorts of them. I mean, for the recent ones, there was one that was to do a track dedicated to one of the Hardware Jammers, so you had to go out and listen to it. Another one was to do with feeling the warmth of the summer. Another one was what the first one we did was, where do we go when we sleep? Just a question. Where do we go when we sleep? And that's just the Kickstarter. It's if you like the catalyst for what you do, and everybody will do something different. So we do have a starting point, and we talk about it. We have a think. We do some bit of prep in our own places. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. And then I just go around to Grace's and we set up, and Grace has got sort of camera gear and a much better recording facilities in her home than I do here. So we go around to Grace's, and she's got a bit more space too. In terms of structure, that tends, when we're just messing about and noodling, it sort of reveals itself. Right, we'll need to do this, and then at this point, and we talk to each other, and we listen. And Grace and I, we'd done an awful lot of proper live jamming back in the Chillage People days, and just setting up and just, well, really, literally, let's just see what happens, And so we are quite happy doing that sort of thing together. When we did the first one in when was it? I can't remember. May last year. It would have been around then anyway. It was quite noticeable to the two of us that the jam that we did, which we called "Here We Go Again," that jam was very much like some of the Chillage People tracks that had existed way back from the late 90s, early 2000s. And we just sort of thought, ooh, we've gone back to Chillage People, haven't we? Basically, we because that's us, that's what we were doing. So it was bound to be like that. But we've tried other things as well. And I think that the key to it, from our point of view, is talking and very, very much listening to what somebody else is doing, and I think quite often knowing when just yourself to back away and give somebody else the space, and bit give and take. I also always bow to Grace's technical knowledge, always. Oh right, and again she will come up with ideas on the modular which would never occur to me, because she's coming at it from a technical angle, and I'm coming at it from a forgive the expression, a musical angle. What notes am I going to play? What rhythms? And Grace is going to be, wouldn't it be interesting if you put this into that, and if you can clock this from there, it will give you a such and such and such. And I'm going, what? How did you think that up? But because that's the way she thinks in her work. So, and it reflects, and I go, I didn't know you could do that. So, being with Grace is also a great learning experience.
Kind of going back there, because there's something that you said that I want to kind of come back to a little bit, and you were talking about how you start the song, and so a lot of people, it would seem that like with modular setup that like most people would start with a very technical mindset because of the nature of modular synthesis. But it is interesting to see that there are a lot of people on the opposite side of the spectrum as well, particularly watching like ambient modular synthesis, which is very artsy and not as technical, but it has that vibe. But the thing that caught me, so writing songs with lyrics, having that kind of inspiration where some sort of, a scene in a movie where something happens and it kind of gets you thinking, or a prominent quote that kind of just gets the gears turning in your head. You're like, that's a really interesting thing, or a piece of artwork or something. And you said you had done something similar to that as well, where you guys, before you've got BPM and key signature and all that kind of stuff, you tell me a little bit more about that. You were saying you come up with an idea and you talk out that idea. How did that go?
Well, with hardware jams, it really does depend from week to week what the idea is. I mean, sometimes it's been as open-ended as, the one of the most recent ones was I want to feel cozy and snug in winter. I want to feel cozy and snug. That's what Jonathan asked in his challenge, and we talked about that. Where's your cozy place? What does it do? What's your cozy music? What do you like to listen to when you want to feel nice and snug and warm? And as it was my birthday when we were doing it, I got my way and we did Tangerine Dream. So, which meant dragging out the other modular case, which has got the 960 sequencer and the Model D in it, so I could do those Tangerine Dream style sequences. But that's what it was. It wasn't to give a feeling of wrapping somebody in a duvet. It was just, this is my happy, comfortable place. This is the music I listen to when I want to go to sleep, sort of thing. Yeah. On other instances, it's been a quite specific starting point. There's been two that we've done which have been based on sample packs, possibly even three. There was one that was a chap called Gioli had made a number of samples on his modular system, and he'd made those available as a sample pack, and his challenge was you have to incorporate 3 of these or whatever. I can't remember if there was a number challenge. You've got to incorporate some of these into your jam. That's all. Do what you like, but you've got to incorporate some of these, and they've got to be evident in some way. You can't just do what you think and say, well, I used it for that. Make it evident that you've used some. There was one that was. Do you remember when? Oh come on, Will Smith. When Will Smith walloped that bloke at the Oscars. Oh, sorry. There was honestly there was that was notable. So someone actually had gone through that particular episode from the Oscars awards ceremony and taken these different samples of Will Smith and Chris Rock, wasn't it? Will Smith, Chris Rock, and and you've got to use those in your jam, and so we got these samples. We chopped them up, and it was. That was just really funny. We just had a laugh with that one. So the hardware jams always gives you a starting point. We've only done a couple where there's been between Grace and I. We've only done a couple together where there hasn't been a hardware jams brief, if you like. We've done it just for ourselves, and then Chris, I have no idea how to tell you how we start that sort of thing off. Grace will usually say, "Oh, I've been noodling on the Microfreak," or "Oh, I've got this nice rhythm going on the model cycles," or and she's recently invested in some cracking bits of kit, the Lyra 8 and the Matriarch and things, but it's and I'll say, "Oh, I did a load of." I was watching a documentary about the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, and there were some great bits in there. So I just sampled all these little bits out. Sometimes it was snippets of just weird sound or speech, and I said, I want to use these. So I don't know. I think the bottom line is you meet up with somebody and you just do something.
Well, I mean,
hopefully,
there's the thing is like I think thinking again about the system of it, because you're not here to say, hey, watch this television program, go to this website, sample this thing, rather instead I think the idea here is like be open and be listening and have a mindset that's ready to take in something new that then can be the springboard for your project.
Yes.
I think
definitely.
that can kind of be the thing, like something that is inspirational but maybe not directly related. So an award speech or something, or something that happens that you hear, you're like, okay, well maybe I can use that. And what would it sound like then if I develop that into a song? I guess is what it is, and that's that. I'm just thinking about, like, for people who are struggling with this, like, well, how do I get started? What do I start doing? Or if I meet up with somebody, how we start doing this? That's why I'm asking you these questions, is because I think they're really interesting ideas on some of the stuff that, we've all done. I mean, Tim's had his story on a previous episode about the craziest of songs, Smoking Baby on an alien train. And so like that created a whole nother thing, and
yeah,
those kind of moments are interesting, but I'm not sure that people are looking for them, because I think the way that a lot of times on YouTube and the synth world and this kind of stuff, the way that YouTubers talk about, it's like, well, I set my BPM to 162 and it's going to be, like that's how you start making art. Like, well, no, there's got to be some sort of serendipity and some magic in it. And then you do all the technical bits to make that magic happen, I think.
I'm with you on that side.
Yeah, on that thought, let's take a moment and actually hear some of this. And now, so the first one we'll start with here is called Cozy Constellation, and this is one of your collaboration tracks.
That's the most recent one, yeah.
Yeah, so let's play a little bit of this, and then later in the show we'll also play some stuff that you've done, some live work you've done recently. Let's get this up here.
There's no sound.
I can't hear any sound, Chris.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling the groove.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, there's no audio.
Oh, no audio. Oh, hold on a second. Let's try to do this the right way here. I was hearing it. It was sounding great. I mean, I don't know what your guys' problem is. It's your tablet.
I mean, I was imagining it. I was imagining it. There was some great groove moving going on there.
Let's jump it back here. Let me know if you can hear this.
Yes, there it is.
Yeah.
Track.
That's
hard
awesome.
to pull out of that.
Okay.
If anybody wants to check out the whole song, which I highly recommend, links to, I think, 4 performances are in the description box below. You can find Andy's channel as well as some other live performances, and we'll show another one a little bit later in our show here. But yeah,
Grace and I have also stuck out 2 sort of compilation albums, in speech marks, of recordings of the jams that we've done for Hardware Jams. There's a volume 1 and a volume 2, and they're up on Bandcamp under Andy and Grace, if anybody's interested, and they're available for free download. You don't have to chuck us any money, although you can if you want. They are available for free download, and we're more than happy for you to do that. So
it's very cool. Hey, Andy. So, excuse me. So it looks like, if I'm seeing it right, hearing it right, mostly, it seems like maybe you're more in charge of the melodic end of things, and Grace is sort of in charge of everything else. Like in that particular video, I mean, it seems like
in that one for sure. I'd already worked out when we said, okay, well, we'll do that. Was the sort of sequencer side using the I mean, honestly, the combination of the 960 and the D, those 2 Behringer boxes, they just give me that Ricochet Rubicon sound, which I love so much. I know it's a bit of a bit of a sort of electronic music cliche, but I love it to death. I can't help myself, you know. I'd done that, and I'd worked on some samples in the bitbox, a sort of choir sample, making it sort of play polyphonically and coming out through and into the Wasp filter, so I could filter it as it was playing.
Oh, nice.
Because again, it gave you that sort of swooshy, phasey effect that wasn't quite like you get on sort of Tangerine Dream. I thought, yeah, this is cool. And Grace had been working on various rhythms and ideas and textures, things on the Lyra 8, and like I said, the matriarch, using the aftertouch on the matriarch to bring in interesting modulations. And it was lovely what she'd done. She was going, I don't really know what I'm doing with this. Is it all right? I'm going, oh, that's brilliant. That's so Tangerine Dream, intro and outro. Yeah, cool. And she was doing sort of the rhythms and the drums and playing that sort of thing. But yeah, basically that's what it is. And I think that comes from our backgrounds. Interestingly, Grace was a drummer, and I was a pianist. So, and it's just happened that way. We don't necessarily always plan it like that. It's just the way it sort of naturally seems to fall, I think.
Right, yeah, and that's why I wanted to really ask that question, because it seems like, you know, in a lot of cases, well, in most cases when you're working with another musician, things will kind of shake out. If you're listening, you know, they'll kind of shake out in the organic sort of way that they should. Hey, you're good at this kind of comes from you, this kind of comes from me. All right, this is either, you know, a complimentary thing, or maybe, you know, you and I don't jive so well or whatever. But definitely it's that. Like, there are two factions at work that have sort of sought their own level, right? And that's what I hear, especially in that one track from you guys, is that there's kind of role playing going on. Everybody's, you know, the two of you are kind of staying out of each other's way. Not necessarily in some sort of like mathematical prescribed way. I'm not saying that, but more in a musical listening kind of way, you know.
Well, I
like
hope
you
so.
guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. And so that's why I really wanted to ask. It's cool because it seems like you're kind of role playing in just the right way.
I think it's also knowing what each other's strengths actually are. Like I look at what Grace does rhythmically and the way she thinks about things rhythmically, and the way she has those things set up. Particularly on that model cycles box that she's got, because that can go way beyond just that little basic electron box. Can go way beyond your standard sort of 4/4 rhythms, and it's really quick on there to set up polymeters. So you might have a 4 beat going, but you can have the next one which will be 3s or 7s go and cycling around in different things. And she's really good at that. Really, really brilliant at these sort of polymetric way of doing things, and that also feeds very nicely into sort of the sort of improvised feel, if you like, because you're never quite sure where the beat's going to come around. In fact, there's a couple of jams that we did. We did one for Hardware Jams called For Freedom, which was basically that idea. We took out all the sort of idea of a 4 on the floor bass drum, particularly the 4 pulse is there, where everything else was different polymeters, even down on the BeatStep Pro, because you can do that on there. You can set your pattern length to 13 steps rather than 16 or whatever. So we were doing that sort of thing. But yeah, certainly Grace is way more rhythmically advanced than I am. But I know that I can turn my hand to let's say a tune. I've always been able to sort of play a melody or a theme quite quickly over a set of something. So if those are our strengths, why? I mean, sometimes it's interesting to do something different. That is true. You know, okay, right, Andy, you're doing all the drums today. Maybe would be a good idea. All right, I will. Right, I'll do the drums. You do the melodies. Maybe we'll see what happens. We haven't done that yet, but maybe we should. Well, we don't. It's just sort of the way it falls. I don't think we ever consciously say, right, come on, Andy.
Right.
You know,
there's no need to. I mean, you're listening, and so that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
you're listening to each other, right? So, I mean, it's falling out.
Yeah.
it's happening organically. So I mean, that's the bit. So, but that's like a key thing, I think, especially with collaboration, is like everybody just like listening and taking a step back and kind of going, all right, what's happening here? What are you good at? What am I good at? What's coming down right now? How do I react to that? What do I do? And then after you've done, like with you guys, I mean, you fall into things that just work, and that's why that's what makes it sound cohesive. That's what makes it exciting. That's what makes it fun for you guys. And because at first, when you're first collaborating with someone, it can be you might be vying for the same turf musically. You might be both trying to grab the melodic, and what needs to happen is, there needs to be the other elements.
Yeah, well, I think this is something that bears itself out a little bit easier in band situations,
right?
And that you get to spend that time in the same room, like face to face. Like, oh, hey, the rhythm guitarist is going low, so I'm going to go high, or the organ player is going high, so I'm going to go low on piano, or that kind of thing, or figuring out how to work those things and find the little sonic space that you're going to sit in, but also does take that kind of critical, like just being aware of the song itself and knowing when to pull back, because that seems to be the thing that a lot of amateurs have a harder time with. Like they don't know, they want to cover all the space at once. I had played with this really great kind of jazz keyboard player, and he'd get this like really full organ patch or something going, and we were playing, and he's like, oh, here, check out this, play something over this, and he'd play this like crazy chord where like somebody else would have to put their hand in and play some more of the notes, almost. And I'd be like, where do I play? You've occupied all the space. I've got nowhere to go on this. I can't do it. And so that's the thing that it's like what I'm hearing from what you talk about, how you and Grace work, is that like, you just as Tim was saying also, like you find the places because you've spent time with the person, you found out what's good about what they do, and you are making notes, like you're learning, you're being open-minded. You go, oh, they do that thing really well, so I'm going to steer out of that pocket and let them occupy it, because that's where they're going to really shine. And then I find this other place that's going to sit well in the song.
I think an even better example of that was the two Hardware Jams meetups which I've been involved with, where myself, a chap called Steve Rutherford, and a chap called Logie, who those are the two guys that are part of the Hardware Jams Facebook group, and they'd said, let's do these meetups. So the first one we did in Leeds, where we just turned up, that really was, I'd never met them before. We talked via Facebook and through the Hardware Jams page, but we'd never actually met in person. And then we sort of met up at the sort of rehearsal studios, Pirate Studios in Leeds, and then just set up our gear. What are we going to do? And we're making sounds and things. And actually, that was a real, quite fabulous moment, because we talked. I think you have to talk to people, and as you just said, Chris, you actually have to realise when it's your turn to back off and give somebody else space. So I was there with my modular rig. Logie had got a couple of Electron things, the mixer and a DJ mixer. He was using a DJ mixer for things, and he was singing. He had got a mic and an vocal effects processor. I can't remember which one. I think one of the Roland ones, but whichever it is, a vocal processor. And Steve Rutherford's playing guitar, and he's got guitar and guitar pedals, and also little synth boxes which he was managing to control from the guitar, which was like a bit of an eye-opener. How do you do that? That's amazing. So we're doing this stuff, and again, it came down to talking about where we're going, listening to each other, and knowing when to give somebody else the necessary space. And I think they worked remarkably well. I mean, it wasn't a surprise to me that when Grace and I got back together making music, that it worked, because we'd been there before. But turning up with these other two guys, because, I think in those situations, I mean, Martin Christie's got a great, the founder of EMOM, he has a great logo, if you like, or mantra: leave your ego at the door. It's not about your ego. It's not about, hey, here I am, hey, look at me. It's about you going in, you do it, you go in there for a reason, and the end justifies the means. So if it's better with you not doing anything, then don't do anything.
Yeah.
The timpani player in an orchestra isn't whacking those great big things every single blooming beat of the symphony. So you got to know when to not do it, really.
I think less experienced musicians sometimes feel like they've got to really put everything out there so that people will accept what they're doing, or they think in some kind of way that they're going to impress everybody and everybody's going to get behind what they're doing. But I found over the years is like the people that are like that, for a short amount of time, people are going to be very impressed, like, oh, you're a really great player. But then, by the second song, you're like, okay, we got this guy's game or this gal's game. Like, we see what they're doing, and they tend not to be, invited to play and to collaborate, because nobody wants to work with a person like that. And that often, like, you feel, especially if you're inexperienced, maybe you feel like you're trying to show that you belong and that you're good enough. But in reality, when you work with really great musicians and collaborations, the thing is more appreciated is like knowing when to give, and when you can have that moment to shine and then pull back. And I think that's a thing that really commands respect, because it does show that you have the common goal is not yourself and how great you are, but it's the song, it's the art that everybody's bringing, coming together to create. That song is a thing that takes precedence rather than the ego, as you said.
I think you're dead right. I couldn't argue with a word of that. I think there's no problem having ego moments. I guess that's what the guitar solo was invented for. Or the drum solo, or any kind of that kind of solo. Right, off you go. Have your moment. Do your thing, and that's fine. But it shouldn't dominate. If one person is dominating over everybody else, then I don't think I'd be comfortable with that sort of scenario. So,
and that's a good point. It's like it serves its place, and actually, when it's done in the right amount of time and it's done in the right place, it does serve that ultimate goal of serving the song. Because when you see something, when you listen to a musician, and often like in jazz context, they'll rotate through solos from different musicians, and jam bands and rock bands and stuff will do this too. And it serves a purpose, because if you didn't have that, like sometimes like it needs it. Like there needs to be a point the audience gets drawn in to that few moments of just really exceptional artistry and technical ability, and you're wailing or doing whatever you're doing, and people are just really digging it. But when the time is to pull out and give it a rest, and somebody comes in and then is able to do their part, and that ends up being a lot more interesting thing for the listener than just to hear the same person do all this. I love guitar, but a lot of the kind of guitar shredder music, even though I like the stuff that they do on guitar, like it's boring, quite frankly. Like it's really cool when you hear it for 30 seconds in a solo, but when you hear it all over the damn song, it gets a little boring. Like, and then you think of a whole concert of that. Like, gosh, give it a rest. Like, do something a little bit different for a bit.
Yeah, play a harpsichord. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, but you're right, because that's dynamics, isn't it? It's about being there, then down, and bring it back up again, and I think so. Interesting. Paul Artola's comment. He said a jam is a musical conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's a good idea to have a very good conversation before you have your jam too. Oh,
Yeah. David
you
says
expect-
finding your space. That's
Yeah.
also.
I'm also going to make a comment that in the last sort of, I think I've always known that I am much better collaborating with people than I am on my own. That actually, you know, for if you're a bedroom musician and you're finding yourself a bit at a, same old, getting out there either and playing in front of an audience or getting out there and collaborating with somebody else is, I'd say, really important. It will actually help you in your own music. But I found that certainly in the last 12 months, the things that I've done with Grace and the things that I've done with the Hardware Jams people have been way, way better and way, way more satisfying than anything I've done in here on my own in a long time.
Yeah.
So, and therefore, I come to the conclusion that actually I'm much better off working with other people and being part of something rather than me trying to say, no, this is mine, I'm doing it for me. And I think sometimes you just got to accept that reality. I think that's real. I quite like going out and playing live on my own. I enjoy doing that. But in terms of the musical creation, I think it's really, really good to create with other people.
And I always like the aspect when you work with somebody else, you get that, like you were kind of talking about, you get to see how somebody else works and tackles certain issues and how they come up with ideas. And sometimes that can influence you as well in coming up with your own.
Well, indeed. I'd never have thought of that. Oh, I mean, like I mentioned about the ways of using the modular system. I mean, Grace thinks about doing things in a way that I never ever would, because she thinks in a different way about it than I do. And you go, that's great. I never thought about that. I didn't realise I could even do that. And you learn. You go, I'm going to make greater use of that. So that's it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I definitely felt that. I think going through COVID and all that kind of stuff, that time period, like we end up making music by ourselves a little bit more often now, and having some collaborations last year was fantastic in that it even just working with Tim and Marshall, and to see just how these two guys go about things, there's always more to learn. Like, again, if you have an open mind and you're willing to accept that you don't know everything and that other people have a lot to offer and to give. And I really have been thinking about things that I learned from the collaboration projects that I've done last year. There's been at least 3 or 4, I think. And, it's like every time I'm thinking like, oh gosh, that was really cool. I didn't think to do it that way. Maybe that's something that even when I'm back here in my own studio and just making my own music, that I start thinking like, how would I implement that? That was a cool idea. Where could I go with that technique and that style? Because I wasn't doing that before.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same way. With the collaborations we've done, I found it exhilarating actually, because it's most of the stuff I've found it very difficult to find like-minded individuals that are even into this type of thing.
Uh-huh.
So, working with people that are competent and talented, and those things are like, it's huge, hugely beneficial.
Yeah.
It's just fun too sometimes,
Yeah.
right? You get
Yeah.
you get with somebody that's like completely not like, you guys can vibe in a way, whatever, hopefully, right? But then aside from that, maybe they're just really coming from a different space. That can be really fun because it just pushes you out of your box and them out of theirs. So in terms of collaborations, that's pretty fun. You just all of a sudden you're kind of everybody's on new ground, and that's like you said, it's exhilarating.
Yeah.
That's exciting, and then it leads to new ideas, and then it busts open new thoughts that you can run with down the road. It's just fun.
Yeah.
Well, and then to see
the
actual product, the product of everyone's efforts and work come together into something that's really cool and unique and good sounding, and that's the best. That's like the reward.
Totally, and even the ones that don't come together good, they still are informing in some way. Like, why did this fail? And then you can go back and look at you can pull it apart and figure out exactly why it failed, and then to kind of stay away from that. But I think the hardware jams thing is it's like school. It's really it's kind of a school. Like it's a community school where everybody gets together and goes, all right, here's your challenge for today. Here's your weekly test, and then everybody has to do the thing and learn. And there's that gentle, friendly competition, and you have to work through all that. There's the competition part of it, there's the challenge part of it, and it's just it's a weekly thing, something you can count on, and you don't have to come up with it individually. It's just all right, here's the challenge, we're all doing the same challenge. It's interesting, but it is kind of like school to me, like that, like you're just going through school to learn, basically. And I think once you've done enough of those, it'd be I just kind of want to now, take these ideas and run. Because then you're just thinking about, I want to think about the postman, putting mail in my box or whatever. And, that's it's enough once you've trained your brain to, seriously, to figure that stuff out. Then anything is inspiration, really. The ruffles in your curtain, whatever. But
I think it's cool that group provides a starting point, because I think that's a challenge for some people. I've talked to people where they have a hard time. They're looking at a blank DAW or whatever. If it's DAW-less, you're just looking at this instrument, where do I even start? So I think that's also helpful.
Yeah, or just listen to other people's music and go, wow, what do I like about that? What's interesting? What I like about that is, let's say, this pulse that's happening in this particular piece of music that you found, right? And then now that's your inspiration point. You go, well, what would I do with a pulse like that? And then you're off to the races,
Yeah, and that's a great bit of insight there for anyone who struggles with that. What Tim just said, pick something out of something that you notice in another piece and try and run with something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're getting a little bit closer to the end here. I was wondering, do we want to hit any either of the topics that we talked about? Do you guys want? I had a questions for both the Mini Freak and the Quantum that we could discuss, but we got about 10 minutes or so. Any of those sound good to you?
What about Never Again? Have we ever hit on that yet? Live?
What's that?
Marshall, Never Again, right?
Yeah, my live track, yeah.
Because that's something that we've talked about hitting on, but I think one thing leads to another, and we haven't gotten to it. But being that that's a live track, I mean, I think we wanted to hit on that, right? So before we completely wrap up.
Yeah, I got it here. So let's play a little of this, and then we'll say our goodbyes, and also we'll play out on one of Andy's tracks.
Absolutely.
So
cool.
This time I'll condescend to let you guys have some audio too.
How very generous of you, Cryss.
Yes.
I'm a benevolent dictator. Okay. So this is on Marshal Arnold's channel.
Yeah, you get started probably about a minute in also.
Okay. So how about there?
There you go.
Here we go.
Oh man, there is so much like concise thought and so much artistry in that. That's fantastic, Marshall.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys.
And that's live.
So everything is being played in real time thanks to that Blue Arp, the Blue Arp hardware that I have, and then drums are being tracked in Ableton, and I'm switching scenes in Ableton with my foot using that pedal that we talked about last week. So the whole setup is exactly what I want to be able to do stuff like that, and I think it's working out brilliantly.
So, sounds great, Marshall.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
I've tried so hard to write tracks that sound like that, and I fail all the time. I can never do that sort of that trance thing. So I've actually stopped trying now. So I doff my cap that it sounds great. Because I've always wanted to, and I can't. It always ends up sounding like it's me again. But so yeah, that sounded great. Really, that.
It is super brilliant, and just all the ebbs and flows that happen, and the sonics and the mix is fantastic. And that you're doing it live. Obviously, you could go back and maybe help the mix a little, but like you're doing that live, and mostly it's just like your head space, that you got in to get to that moment and to figure out that whole landscape of what that tune is like really cool. I can really appreciate that, and it just grooves its ass off. It's crazy.
Yeah. That's a lot of fun to do too, and the cool thing is, I could have played a completely different song using those exact same elements, and that's the fun part about doing it like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, the thing I enjoy is that again, we're that marriage of artistry and technique come, the art of it and the science of it. And to me, like when you really nail it is when you can have something that's like as crazy technical as that track, and hearing the breakdown of what was involved in making that, but then have the final product be so like amazingly beautiful and artistic is a really a great triumph, because there are too many people that are just like, there's 18 modulators modulating themselves and cross-modulating and all this kind of stuff, and you end up with something that just sounds like trash. Like, okay, I guess that was interesting, but it wasn't beautiful. And so, and then you have people that like just totally give up on any sort of technical stuff. But to me, the thing is like when you can get both of those things working so well together.
And it's taken a long time to be able to get to this point. So Andy, you were saying you've struggled with trance, for example. I've been struggling with it for like 20 years. It's taken a long time.
I think they'll have put me in a box and nailed down the lid by then. So. Sorry, no, go on.
Oh no, I was just going to comment. Just two great different examples, Marshall. Your track, and then Andy, the track that with you and Grace. Two great examples of like how things can come together so beautifully from so many different points, really, and technique is in there, but it's still like the end result is you're listening to something musical, right? So you want it to be musical, exactly. And there's so much technique behind both of what you guys are doing. But hopefully that just sort of is like the diaphanous thing, right? But what's coming through is the music, and just really interesting to hear the two different versions of how you guys assemble live music. I mean, using some very similar tools, but like, wow. Yeah. Very unique to each one of you. So bravo, both of you.
Okay.
Well, let me ask what's going on with each of you, and then give a few other things at the end of the show here. Marshall, what's next this week?
So I'm about to wrap up that set of music for that game. I am very excited to delve into Vast, which is the term that they use for the synth engine in the K2500. If you guys go and listen to there's some really great videos on that synth. it covers a very wide gambit of sound, including orchestral things like that, synthesis. There's all kinds of stuff going on in there, so I'm really excited to get into that too. So I'll probably be playing around with that this weekend quite a bit.
Marshall, who's the artist that you most associate that with? I mean, that synth.
I think there's quite a few famous people that have used it, but the specific reason why I wanted one is because I want to be able to recreate the soundtrack from the original Halo Combat Evolved video game, and that was composed by Marty O'Donnell. So that's why I ended up.
Nice. So there's a real specific attachment that you have.
That's why I got the Proteus 2000 and the JD 990. Exact same reason. Like, these were tools that he used in the early 2000s to make that soundtrack, and it's one of my favorite soundtracks of all time. So
awesome. Tim, how
That's
about you?
really cool. I've my band is playing the live show tomorrow night. It's with a completely different live rig. You may be able to see my laptop open. Let's see. Would I point this way, that way? Anyway, with the X over the Apple back there.
Yeah.
it's my. Can you tell? Yeah, it's got that.
Yeah,
it's got a little X over. That's my punk statement. But yeah, no, it's totally different from the Eurorack thing. And because I'm playing everything, there's nothing sequenced. There's nothing. There are no tracks, nothing. So I'm literally playing everything live, and we worked up 10 or 11. I guess it's 11 new songs. So I'm challenged to the hilt by this, and I'm using main stage to switch around. So it's changing programs on everything. All I have to do, hopefully, is hit the down arrow, and I'm to the next song. And then hopefully I can remember what the next song is and where I was and what keyboard, because on some songs I'm actually playing all three in different combinations. And so I've been super challenged by doing this. So basically, that's what my life is until after tomorrow night, when we're done at about midnight, I think. And so that's my big thing is playing with my band. I'm super excited to debut these songs, and it's a really cool band. It's really different. It's me, and then it's a drummer, and it's a vocalist. And so, well, you guys know of Ben Jackson. He's been on the show before. So
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, that's just been I've been so consumed with trying to learn all those parts and then try to forget about learning them and just play it musically. It's been it's super challenging. And again, nothing is I'm not using any sequences or anything. I'm actually playing it like a band, playing it like keyboard. So I don't know. I've lost my mind. Hopefully it goes okay.
Do you make your introduction live what was that old TV show? You'd say, "I'm Tim, and this is my brother Ben, and my other brother Ben."
Well,
what show was that? I don't.
I don't know, but they are my brothers. I mean, they are brothers from other mothers, and it's just the camaraderie's great, and I love the songs we've written. And it's really cool, so I'm excited. Anyway, that's my thing.
Pin Jones
well,
Conspiracy. Andy,
Yes.
what's next for you?
Well, I wish Tim well with that gig tomorrow, and embrace the mistakes, because there will be some. There's bound to be. So yeah, but because don't worry, nobody else knows. So go with that. What's next for me? A couple of EMOM events, electronic music open mic nights in February. One in Sheffield, one in Derby. And then at the beginning of March, there's an event called Synth East, which Robin Vincent, Molten Modular, has set up in Norwich. And part of that is having a thing called a patch off. Now, I think I'm going to be part of that. In other words, people who turn up with their modulars, you get paired off with somebody, and you try to come up with something and then do it. I think that's the general idea. So I volunteered my services, and I think he's accepted that. But I'll be going to that event nonetheless, whether I'm part of that or not. So just more EMOM nights, more jams with grace when time allows, and hopefully I've got an idea in my head for an, I hate saying this word, but a concept album, an idea that I'd like to pursue. If I say it, it'll have to be reality, so I won't say what it is. But I do have an idea that I won't say now. But I'd like to just to pursue. But that would mean me actually getting off my bum and doing something properly. So.
What about you, Chris? What do you got going on?
Yeah, well, so if I'm lucky, I might get to plug some of this stuff in and make a little music with it in a few days.
Yeah.
What is that stuff?
Oh yeah, let's just it's 2600. It's my Mantis case with a bunch of Euro Rack gear, Matriarch. I've got another little whatever it is, Forum S pod with
Look
other
at
stuff
that.
in it.
Is that the spherical oscillator?
Yeah, the Swan
Ooh.
Spherical Wavetable Navigator. Yeah,
That's it. Yeah.
yeah.
That thing looks
kind
cool.
of a cool thing. It's fun to play with.
Mm.
But yeah, so it'd be great because it's not like I just sit down and just start creating some stuff. You got to do a little work for it. So I'm hoping to have the time to do that. And then towards next Wednesday, I'll just like shove it all off, just knock it all on the floor, and then put up a bunch of guitar pedals and stuff. Because next Wednesday we are talking effects and guitar rigs. So we've talked synth rigs the last 2 weeks, and we're going to have an episode where my buddy Arlo Tar is coming on, and he, like myself, has been a live musician for a long time, also doing a lot of studio recording. And so we're going to have it out like we've had it out the last 2 weeks on synthesizers, but it'll be a little more in the guitar neighborhood. But if you are effects curious, if you are curious about anything guitar, also like using see how guitarists who love effects and you want to figure out how to work it into your synth rig or something like that, this will probably be the episode to watch for that, and it should be a really fun time. I've been looking forward to it. So
I'm excited to see how that whole world operates and how you guys set all that stuff up, because I think that's a whole alien concept to me. I'm excited to see how it all works.
Well, the truth is, it's not really alien. It's a lot of black magic, but
Okay, there you go.
It's witchcraft. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry, yeah. We were thinking alien. It's actually witchcraft.
Yeah.
Missed it by that much, yeah.
Alien, that's the Smoking Baby Alien train. That's all drummer stuff.
That's drummers. We'll get to that later.
Yes, and so that's an episode that actually we have been talking about for some time, and that we will get to is an episode dedicated to what do you do with drums. And so we're hoping that Tim will give us a tour of acoustic drums and how he uses them, and also everybody uses drum machines. So Marshall has done some great drum machine work with stuff that we've done, collaborated together. And so we'll be looking forward to the ins and outs of drumming at a future date. So up next will be guitars. Also, just a few other things. If you could, don't forget to like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. We appreciate it. And one of the things I appreciate is having everybody in the chat, but also people who leave comments during the week. That's very encouraging, and we love to hear from you and love to talk. And Andy's been one of those people who pops in, and after he, because it's the middle of the night.
Most time I have to see this on catch. In fact, I've only ever seen it on catch up. Later on, because I'll be fast asleep and then work.
Yeah.
yeah.
Smart man.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, Andy. It's a huge pleasure to have you with us.
Just circumstances making it possible at this point. And like I said, it was. I really enjoyed watching the show last week and what you were talking about with the different systems and setups, and actually systems, and Tim, you're actually a really good example of having different systems actually in one place. You know, the system for that, a system for the other, and I found that really, really quite fascinating. So I was really, really happy to be asked to come on. I thought, oh yeah, I can, because I felt I got something to say about it.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And yeah, no, what you do is really awesome. And so thanks for being on. And again, yeah, and for doing it like in the middle of the night for you.
It's okay. I know Ramsey did it once for Pro Synth Network when he had to get up at something like 3 o'clock in the morning to do that, which was, yeah, I think, bloody hell. I don't know. Yeah, happy to oblige. Happy to oblige.
So I guess we can see you on Ramsey. I think January 28th is
January 28th. He's starting up again. Yeah, he's had a bit of an extended break, like a lot of other people.
Yeah.
Is it Heinrich that's filling in this coming week, and then Ramsey and crew will be back on the 28th?
Henrik's doing a show this Saturday. I don't think I'll be on. I've got a lot that I need to sort out on Saturday morning, based on that thing we were talking about before we went live, and hopefully that's the tying up all the loose ends on Saturday and making my life an awful lot easier again. But I don't know what time that's all going to be finished, so I didn't want to commit, not knowing whether I was going to be around or not. So, but yeah, the following week, Ramsey will be back. So thanks to Henrik for filling the gap.
Nice.
Yes.
Yes. The last thing I want to say is that this week, so many people in our community have made great music. A lot of people in the chat. I mean, I've listened. So I went back and I listened to the 94 to 98 or 97 album yesterday that Andy had put out, plus a whole bunch of his music that he had sent me over. Stuff that I had seen, but it was great to listen to again. But then everybody else, Brian Gethsemane Music has been doing a track every day.
What a busy man he's been.
He's been crazy busy. You said Paul, I missed out, but I guess Paul Artola was doing some music today.
Apparently it's on Saturday, and I just can't read dates properly. so.
Sonic Neutronic that was in the chat earlier. Dan does some cool stuff with the Prophet 5. Really cool, like the old horror soundtrack stuff. Check that out. I listened to some stuff by Robert Brown this week, who was in the chat also. Synthetic Andy did a really cool track. It was yesterday or the day before that I really liked. I mean, there's so many good tracks coming out by people that we know in the community, and rather than going and giving a like to Jean-Michel Jarre, who's got all your money already, go and support one of our buddies and our friends, and because it is really good. I'm just really impressed with what everybody is doing. So. With that, we will wish you all a good night, and to Andy, a very good morning. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Good night, everyone. Or good morning, good afternoon, whatever